Every iteration of Dawn Warrior, ever since its first introduction to MapleStory, has always been insanely fun for me, with each one playing fairly differently. I'm not here to dwell on that past, though. Currently, Dawn Warrior is one of the strongest Cygnus Knights, with very little effort and knowledge required to excel with, for both training and bossing. They hit lots of lines, are very useful in both solo play and parties, and have a fairly unique kit, constantly swapping between stances. First job, they get a standard flash jump, a couple passives, and 3 toggles. The first 2 are Rising Sun and Falling Moon, which are Dawn Warrior's passive stances. You can only use one stance at a time. Moon doubles your lines but decreases your final damage by 55% and caps your lines at 15. Sun gives you 10% final damage and bumps your attack speed up by 1. Their third toggle, Soul Element, creates cosmic orbs when your attacks hit enemies. This has more use later, but currently each orb gives you 20 attack up to 2 orbs. Your attacks you get, Lunar Divide and Solar Slash, change depending on your stance. Both have similar damage, factoring in each stance's strengths and weaknesses, but Slash attacks in front of you while Divide attacks around you. Second job gets a whole lot more passives, including one that boosts Divide and Slash's damage, and one that gives you another orb, as well as a new toggle that lets you swap between Sun and Moon stances with each attack. It also buffs each stance slightly. Cosmic Matter is the first space skill you get, and it just shoots a cosmic ball forward in front of you. At the end, if it gets all the enemies in its path, or it reaches its max range, it does a little explosion at the end. 15-second cooldown. Third job has more passives, more buffs for Equinox, another cosmic orb, and another cosmic ability, Shower. This places an AoE down wherever you want that does pretty nice damage to all enemies within it. Normally, it lasts 45 seconds, but each extra orb you have when you use it increases the duration by 3 seconds each. It also does more damage to normal monsters. Flicker and Buster are your typical rush skill most warriors get. It knocks back enemies, it mobs, and it moves you forward. True Sight is a skill that debuffs enemies around you, decreasing their defense and increasing their final damage taken for 30 seconds. This is a party buff that becomes majorly useful in bosses later. Fourth job, you get more passives, another cosmic orb, the typical Maple Warrior and Hero's Will of every other class, and a huge buff to Equinox. Now, the stats of each are combined into one, with only one very slight downside. You get double the lines, extra final damage, crit rate, attack speed, but your final damage instead caps off to 90%. It's still a major increase to have all those other buffs for both Divide and Slash. Equinox Slash is a teleport forward with a 5-second cooldown and is a pretty decent positioning tool for both reaching platforms while up jumping and just good damage in general. Impaling Rays is DW's bind, big hitbox, 3-minute cooldown. Lastly, Cosmic Burst is one of Dawn Warrior's main attacks. You can right-click to toggle it so it happens automatically at max orb stacks, but when used, it shoots out orbs that home in on nearby enemies. 15-second cooldown in between each burst of orbs, reducing by 1 second per orb stack. Hyper Skills consists of Luster Charge and Blazing Assault, both as the same skill, and can be used once each depending on your stance. They can be used into each other, and both count as iframes that last 1.8 seconds each, with a 45-second cooldown, though you only get 5 seconds to use the other one after the first. Glory of the Guard is just another epic adventure-like skill, applies to all Cygnus in the party and gives 10% damage for a minute with a 2-minute cooldown, and Cosmic Forge is a buff that doubles your maximum cosmic orbs from 5 up to 10. This boosts pretty much everything spacey and cosmic in Dawn Warrior's kit, giving tons more burst orbs to toss at enemies and increasing the duration of Shower by about 15 seconds. For hyper passives, get everything for True Sight. Persist is more a comfort thing. If you feel like you can maintain the base duration consistently, you don't really need that, but Enhance and Guard Break you'll absolutely want. Those both make the debuff just that much greater, and makes it so much more useful in parties, especially that Elemental Resistance Decrease one. You'll also want Cosmic Shower and Burst Reinforce because you'll be having those out constantly, and Divide and Slash Reinforce since that's your main attack. If you decided you don't want True Sight Persist, you could get one of the Guard Break ones for Burst or Divide and Slash too. Fifth job is pretty fun because it's all big in size. You could even call it galactic in size. Cosmos is a big black hole above you, or galaxy apparently. It looks like a black hole to me, anyways. It stays out for 15 seconds, 90-second cooldown, and just obliterates everything it touches. Rift of Damnation is a buff that makes your attacks spawn a rift in place that increases in size when you use the other skill this skill gives, Styx Crossing. Activated either with Slash and Divide or your basic attack if you toggle the skill. Styx is just a skill with a massive hitbox with equally as massive damage, mobs hit, and lines. Once Rift expands big enough, it explodes and does big damage too. 5-second cooldown in between creating rifts, 3-minute total skill cooldown. Flare Slash is a neat little passive that activates every 12 seconds, and it just does a big old burst of damage when you attack. The more you change stances, the shorter the cooldown will be, by 0.8 seconds every stance swap, or 1.5 times reduction when using Styx Crossing. And lastly, Soul Eclipse is a map-wide attack that is just constant damage to everything you see on screen. It lasts 40 seconds, and at the end you can pop it again for a big old burst in iframe. This skill is insanely good for grinding, especially doing Arcane River dailies, letting you get by with just jumping around a large map. For other nodes at 5th, Cygnus's Phalanx Charge is useful for grinding, and a little bit for bossing, and Warrior's shared node, Weapon Aura, is extremely useful for bossing. Every 5 seconds, it shoots a wave of damage forward with your main attacks. It has 2 charges, which each prepare every 3 minutes, and its duration lasts longer the higher its level, up to 140 seconds at max level. So to make Dawn Warrior easy, remember to toggle all your passives and use up your Cosmic Orbs whenever they hit normally 5 or 10 while Cosmic Forge is active. Make sure Cosmic Shower is active and out, and for the rest of the orbs, keep spamming Burst whenever it's off cooldown, or toggle it so they always come out when the orb count is maxed out. Take advantage of your hitboxes as much as you can. Slash and Divide may not have the biggest hitboxes, but Rift just decimates everything in front of you. This lets you space yourself a fair distance away in bosses while they're doing their silly little song and dance. Speaking of bossing, True Sight constantly on bosses makes life easier for not only you, but your entire party, especially when you get all the hyper passives for it. One of the greatest support debuffs in the game, honestly. For grinding, pop Soul Eclipse whenever it's available, and breathe easy for about 40 seconds. Though much like Ho-Young, don't forget to pop it before it goes away. For bossing, decide whether you want to use Soul Eclipse for extra burst or as an iframe. You have Charge and Assault from your hyper skills, so it's not really necessary to save Soul Eclipse as a third iframe, but hey, the option's there if you can remember it in the nick of time. Charge and Assault are also very useful for getting super far away from situations and bosses, or just speeding through maps when combined with Equinox Slash. All of them count as teleports, and Charge and Assault are iframes, so getting past Lucid Golems is a breeze. Though keep this in mind for Lucid. Use Charge and Assault, and then Equinox, as Charge and Assault don't easily pass through Golems, but you get a lingering iframe after using them, and Equinox does pass through Golems. Useful for rushing to one side to avoid Dragon, if either you don't have Blink on a node or it's on cooldown. Inner ability is in the same ballpark as mostly everything else in this game. Boss as the first line, and Abnormal status and damage, and Crit as the second and third lines. And things like Drop, Meso, or Flat Attack and Stats are decent enough settles. You could also drop crit rate for another line if you already hit the 100% crit rate cap. You could also technically get attack speed for your legendary line, but it's not necessary because you can hit the attack speed cap comfortably enough without it, and instead get more damage out of just rolling for the other things. It is a fine enough settle option though. Link skills are pretty similar for most generic class, grinding and bossing links. These for bossing, resistance link optionally if you want extra survivability after dying in a boss, and then these for grinding. For Trinodes, it's very simple and straightforward. Slash and Divide, Cosmic Shower, and Cosmic Burst. That's it. Those are your main bread and butter attacks, and the other nodes you're not going to really be using all that often for attacks or damage. There's just no point in getting them, really. I'll also briefly mention that Dawn Warrior is one of the remaining few classes which, for years now, has had some dependency on a decent internet connection, or ping, or MS. There are ways to check how to properly do this, I won't get into that, but it seems the sweet spot is getting anything under 150 to 200 MS. It's honestly not that big of an issue nowadays, but if you plan on going heavily into maining a Dawn Warrior, It's worth knowing that and playing at your own discretion. For weapon types, Dawn Warriors can either roll with one-handed sword plus a shield, or two-handed sword with the standard Cygnus secondary. The general consensus is that two-handed is objectively better in every way, even factoring in attack speed, damage modifiers, and things like best in slot shield, Terminus Defender. But that's just so outlandishly far away from most players that it's barely worth mentioning for classes that can use it, unless you play reg server or are lucky enough to possess one. So yeah, stick with two-handed sword and work on getting attack speed. For burst/BA, buff up, use your Cygnus damage buff and Cosmic Force hypers, weapon aura, use Cosmic Burst, will skill if you have that on a node, pop Soul Eclipse and Rift, place down Cosmic Shower, and then Cosmos when your orbs reach 10 stacks again, attacking in between waiting for the stacks. Then just keep hitting with sticks or divide and slash once Rift is on cooldown. Lastly, use Soul Eclipse again before it expires for an extra burst of damage. Breaking it down and simplifying it even further. Buff up, debuff boss with True Sight, use Cosmic Forge for 10 orb stacks, place down and use Cosmic Burst and Shower when you can, use all your 5th job skills, spam Rift and Sticks. It's a little tricky with all the different timings for Cosmic Orb stacks, but it's easier in practice than explanation. And there you go. Dawn Warrior has tons of skills to cycle through, but they're one of those classes where you can slap everything on your keyboard after the boss is bound, and still get away with doing heavy damage no matter what. Just be careful to not hit your iframe buttons. Everything else is fair game. Thanks for watching, and I hope this guide helped if you were confused on how to play Donnie. Thank you to the Dawn Warrior Discord for clarification on certain skills, and just being a great resource for this class, having mostly everything in one place, thorough explanations on things, and cute emotes. On another note, recently, I've seen people in various Maple-centric places, Reddits, Discords, etc., getting frustrated over the new boss qualification thing, and trying to assemble parties for bosses that are way overqualified for even just duoing said bosses. It's kind of inspired me to do some quick and easy boss guides, or how to make it so you can always do everything in your power to contribute to the boss and hit that 5% mark for the rewards at the end. But I feel like boss guides have been done so often by most other creators that it just feels very unnecessary and pointless. If anybody has any interest in seeing my insight on how to make most bosses easier, let me know. Otherwise, I'll probably just stick with my normal routine of one general Maple related video and follow that up with a class guide. Maybe some other video ideas in the future for updates or events and going over patch notes and things. That's all.